The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Welcome to the bonus show, big bonus show today. It is the last phase of public comment on a proposal from the Trump administration, which would give the owners of bars and restaurants more control over the tips of their workers. The Labor Department is asking for feedback. Hundreds of thousands of people have weighed in, many from the service industry, and they're saying, we are against this rule. What this rule would allow is for restaurants to take all the tips as revenue, essentially, and then pay out part of it, if they want, to the restaurant employees. And this is a rule that could cost tipped workers billions of dollars per year in the aggregate. And the proposal is, of course, driven by the restaurant industry. They want more control over workers' tips. And the way it works now is if you pay with a credit card at a restaurant and you write in the tip, the waitstaff, the employee, has to go back to the computer, add in the amount that you have tipped. And depending on the arrangement with the restaurant, they either take that out as cash and the restaurant then keeps it, or they separately, with their paycheck, every 2 weeks or every week, depending on the pay schedule, they get the total of tips on credit cards added back in and they pay taxes on them. If you leave a cash tip, of course, they're supposed to declare it as income, but surprise, most of them don't. And they just put the cash in their pocket, and it is much more beneficial to them, I guess is the point.
And sometimes the tips are shared with the cooks
Sure.
and the hosts and everything else.
No doubt about it. This is a big deal for tipped employees. I mean, a lot of tipped employees in many parts of the country are making around $3 an hour. At one point, it was $2.63 an hour.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's gone up at all, but if it has, I assume it's not that much. And this is a way that the restaurant industry is saying we can reallocate tips more fairly this way because, as you pointed out, Pat, the people working in the kitchen, sometimes the host or hostess, they're not necessarily party to the tips. The restaurant might have an arrangement where the waitstaff says, I will tip out the people bussing tables, the cooks, whatever. They don't have to do that. And the idea from the restaurants is we can even out wage inequalities doing it this way. But of course, the opportunity for the restaurant owners to take advantage of this is absolutely huge. And the net effect will be less money in the pockets of waitstaff at restaurants.
Yeah, and these business owners can take advantage of this new rule so long as they're paying their waitstaff minimum wage.
Right.
And it's like a bait and switch, I think, because most people going to the restaurants don't realize maybe that the waitresses already receive minimum wage, and especially they don't realize that the tips that they're leaving, that nice 25% tip or whatever it is, isn't going to their lovely waitress or their polite waiter. It's going to the
restaurant owner or and again, it's not bad to say, hey, you know what, you shouldn't be punished because you work in the kitchen, right?
No.
You should be party to the tips, and if you're working in the kitchen and you make the same wage as someone working on the floor of the restaurant, and you don't get tips in the kitchen, but you do when you're waitstaff, that I understand.
Yeah, I mean, my sense is that they typically make less, and part of that is because if you're a waiter, waitress, then you're participating in customer service.
That's correct.
Which not everyone wants to do.
No doubt about it. So hundreds of thousands of comments, mostly against this. I'm against this. I don't say this because I think the current system is perfect. I actually think it's insane that you're even allowed to pay waitstaff $2.63 an hour.
Yeah, and there are now restaurants that are tipless restaurants.
That's right.
And they'll say with a sign on the door,
I love it,
that we pay our wage staff minimum wage, living wage.
Yes.
Sometimes it's like $15, $16 an hour, so you don't have to tip. So as long as you're communicating that with the public, I think that's fine. That's the way we should be going into.
The epitome of the hipster living wage coffee shop is a place called Haymarket Cafe in Northampton, Massachusetts. Plenty of vegan options, Pat, if you ever find yourself there. It's actually a vegetarian restaurant. Great cafe, great coffee. I've been going there for, 15 years, a very, very long time, since I was allowed to drink coffee. And they have made a big deal out of the fact that they pay living wages. They said, listen, we have increased. I think at one point they were paying $14 an hour and they went to 15 or 15 to 17. And they said all prices have gone up 6% or something because we have increased everybody's wages to some amount, which works out in Northampton, Massachusetts to a living wage. They also have a common account, and when you go, you can say, hey, let me throw $5 into the common account, which then they use to serve meals to people who are homeless or poor or can't afford food for whatever reason. And they actually have a sign which says, last month we received $3,000 towards our common account. We paid out $3,500 worth of meals. We will do this even if it's at a little bit of a loss. You can contribute whatever you want. And they're really doing a lot of great things.
Yeah, I'm very happy with that.
Yeah.
Do you know who Stuart Varney is? He's
Yes,
one of the most contemptible people on Fox News or
Fox Business now, yeah.
Yeah. He, as a result of all the stories about the restaurants that pay their workers a living wage, he said, well, I'm far less inclined to leave a nice tip knowing that these workers are receiving a living wage. And it's like, yes, Stuart Varney, that's the point.
That's the point. It would be great if the salaries didn't depend on your mood the day that you went in there.
Yes.
Right? There's no doubt about that. Okay, Michelle Bachmann is not running for Al Franken's Minnesota Senate seat. I previously told you that she said on, I believe it was the Jim Baker show, that whacked out show, where you can buy 3 tons of dehydrated potatoes if you want, or just hear religious gospel. She said she would decide whether to run for Al Franken's Senate seat or not on the basis of what God communicates to her. And she is now saying, the Lord did not tell me to run for Al Franken's Senate seat, so I'm not going to do it. She said, quote, it became very clear to me that I wasn't, she wasn't being called to it. I don't remember exactly what language she used on Minnesota Public Radio. She said that to Jan Markell. So she won't be running for Al Franken's Senate seat. I think this is good because she has a long history in Minnesota, and there's always a chance that she could have won, although it wasn't super likely. But I'm glad that she's not running.
Yeah, I mean, I know some religious folks say that they hear directly a message from God, whether it be him calling down upon them, actually hearing his voice. And then other religious folks will say that, you know, you hear from God, but it's through people and life events.
Or a bush.
I wonder which one Michelle Bachmann experienced.
I think with her, it's actually just that weird husband of hers who's wired up her bedroom with sound. I don't think it's any. I don't think it's either of them.
I think it was donors and polls that suggested that she was.
You know what it was? It wasn't that God said don't run. It was the absence of anyone telling her run because I'll donate to you that made her say, I don't think I'm running for this thing.
Yeah, I mean, I was shocked though. It seems like whenever these politicians are making their decision based on what God has to say, God usually says yes, and they go for it, and they have to because it's a divine responsibility at that point.
And when they lose, it's because God has a plan for them.
Well, that's,
God wanted them to run, and it was God's plan that they not win. And it's God works in mysterious ways.
I mean, that's the silver lining approach, though.
Of course.
Which I'm okay with.
You're favorable, too. Let's talk about the lottery. It's been a month since a New Hampshire woman said she chose all 6 numbers for the $559 million Powerball grand prize. She has not turned in the ticket, and the money still has not been claimed. And apparently what's going on, it's not that she doesn't want the money. It's that she doesn't want anyone to know that she won it. We don't know the identity of the woman. She says she signed the ticket after the January 6th drawing. And the Associated Press says she was following the instructions on the ticket and on the website, but that she now has filed a complaint in Hillsbury Superior Court in Nashua, New Hampshire, because she wants to collect winnings anonymously. And it is a whole nightmare and very, very complex. A spokeswoman for the New Hampshire Lottery says that there is a right-to-know law in New Hampshire which allows them to reveal the identity of the person. The woman doesn't want the identity, her own identity revealed. There's a loophole that could conceivably allow the winner's identity to be shielded if the name of a trust is written on the back of the ticket. So the woman already put her name on the back of the ticket. If from the beginning she had named a trust in the back of the ticket, a trust which obviously has to exist, meaning she has to go to a lawyer and have the lawyer create the trust, she could have done that, but it's too late because she already wrote her name on the back of the ticket. And I don't know, I guess you're not allowed to cross it out and put in something else. So this is becoming major, major drama. And you know what? I understand her not wanting anyone to know who won the money.
I understand that too, to some degree. I mean, Americans are, you know, they want to keep their privacy by and large.
If I won 600 million, I don't want people knowing that I won 600
million. But I feel the opposite way, whereas if I'm willing to put my privacy by the wayside if I just have the easy access to $550 million. I want it right away. You know, I don't want to wait and go through the courts and all that. I'm going to speak to a lawyer, but I don't want to belabor some process that could result in me not getting the money.
Well, if you're going through it correctly, you have, I think it's 90 or 100. Oh, is it a year?
I think it's a year,
yeah. First of all, the 550 very quickly becomes 130. Right? Because if you take the lump sum, you get half and then half in taxes. So, you know, first of all, we're talking about 130 million, not 550. But
Still.
I sympathize with this. I think that you become a huge target as soon as it's known
Yeah.
that you won the lottery. And I've talked about this before. I would take almost all the money and I would put it into some predetermined asset allocation
Yeah.
of bonds,
Index funds.
total stock market index funds, world index funds. I would diversify it into some real estate, and I would take some small amount and say, this is what I'll do to upgrade my lifestyle, and not use most of it for that, and basically live on the interest.
Yeah, I'm surprised you've thought all this out. Even
Well, it's
though
come up
that-
on the show before.
Yeah, but you never played the lottery, right? You don't even do
No,
scratch tickets.
I've never paid the lottery.
Yeah.
Played.
I definitely disagree with this law. I mean, you should have that right to privacy, and I understand you don't want your friends and family and everyone else bothering you for money. I wonder what their reasoning is for having that law in the first place. Maybe it is so like it feels a little bit more real to people, like an
Yeah, I
actual
don't know.
person won that amount of money.
I mean, listen, whoever runs a lottery can set up the rules that they want. I think if
Yeah.
the commission says no trusts, you got to have a name of a person.
Yeah.
Then when you choose whether to play the lottery or not, then you're accepting their rules.
Yeah, that
right?
information is available to you. Most people aren't
Certainly.
going to read the fine print.
They're not, but it is
it's
there.
part of that, yeah.
The issue here is that you can put the name of a trust, but she already wrote her name, and it's now
Right.
a
Yeah,
legal,
it's a
a
whole deal.
judicial system. Anyway, most people that play the lottery are the people that should not be wasting money on lottery tickets. We know that.
Yeah.
And that's a theme that I often come back to anytime we talk about the lottery.
Unfortunately, those are the stories that don't really get covered.
That's right. All right, that's it. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.